Morning, everybody. Before we start the subcommittee for for the sake of completeness, if I can just go through a couple of matters of routine housekeeping. It's Wednesday, so we're not expecting any fire drills this morning. If you do hear the fire alarm go off, if you can follow one of the members of staff, one of the officers, then we'll make sure that we lead you to a place of safety, etc. If I can ask you at this stage to make sure that your phones are turned off or in the very least on silent, please. So without further ado, obviously in accordance with the hearing regulations, there's no standing chair of the licensing subcommittee. So if I can ask members to propose nomination, please.
I'd like to propose Councillor Posnett as chair today.
I would like to second that. Thank you.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. Well, as already been said, my name is Councillor Pam Posnett, and I'm chair of this subcommittee today. Those present are Councillor Jeanne Douglas on my right and Councillor Elaine Holmes over on my left. The following council officers are present: Louise Arnold, Senior Solicitor and Legal Advisor; Sarah Flower, Licensing and Compliance Officer; Simon Greensmith, Licensing Compliance Officer; Helen Ainge, Democratic Services Officer. No, she's not, it's Natasha. Thank you. And Adam Green, Senior Democratic Services and Scrutiny Officer. At the end of the representations, the meeting will be adjourned. The subcommittee will retire to make their decision. The parties may remain in the meeting room and await the outcome, but must turn off their microphones, as the meeting will remain live on YouTube during this period. Please turn mobile phones to silent and note that the meeting will be recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Do we have any apologies for absence? No. Councillor Pritchett was a substitute for this committee, but because we're quality, doesn't want to sit in at the meeting, so there are just the three of us as councillors. Do members have any interest to declare? Councillor Holmes?
Madam Chairman, I just happen to live in the next ward, but in the Waltham ward, but no, I have absolutely no interest whatsoever.
Okay. Councillor Douglas?
No, I have no interest to declare. Thank you.
Thank you. So a new premises licence application for Bidden Festival on land within the grounds and owned by Beaver Castle, known as Nipton Pastures and Frog Hollow, Beaver Castle grounds in Beaver itself. The procedure we shall follow today is the licence officer will present the report. The applicant or his representative will present their application and address the representations with an opportunity afterwards for questions. Any interested parties who are present will be then given the opportunity to present their case, and after the presentations there will be an opportunity for questions. They will then be given the opportunity to make closing statements. I will then adjourn the hearing to enable the subcommittee to retire and make a decision. We will then be accompanied by our legal advisor who will advise on the law and any relevant guidance or case law. Any person may be represented by a person of their choosing, whether they're legally qualified or not. Any person may withdraw their representation at any point during this hearing. The subcommittee and legal advisor may ask questions at any point in the hearing to clarify any matter. This is not a court, and as such, strict court rules do not apply. The hearing will follow the procedure I've just outlined. Any evidence to be given will not be given under oath, but I should remind parties that providing untrue statements is a criminal offence under the Licensing Act 2003. Any comment or statement or question must be addressed through me as the chair and notified by raising their hand. There will be no direct cross-examination by any person of any person. Questions will be permitted at the allotted times. I have and will exercise the right to intervene and interrupt any person if that person is providing evidence or asking questions that are not relevant to the hearing today or to the fourth licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, the protection of children from harm. If any person behaves in an unruly or disruptive manner, I shall exercise my rights as chair to adjourn the hearing and consider removing the person. Before we start, can I confirm the parties have received all of the paperwork? Yeah, fine. Thank you very much. And finally, the regulations state that all parties must have an equal length of time to make their representations. So we need to agree a maximum time. Is anybody who will be making any representation going to take any longer than 10 minutes to speak? No, that's fine. So each party will have a maximum of 10 minutes in which to make their representation. The legal advisor will give you a minute warning before the end of the 10 minutes. I will now invite the licensing officer to present their report.
Thank you.
Right, over to Simon Greensmith. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the 21st of December 2021, Melton Borough Council's licensing team received an application for a premises licence to hold a time-limited licence to allow for one 4-day music festival, including camping, in 2022. This was for up to 14,999 persons in the grounds of Belvoir Castle, Belvoir, NG32 1PE. The licence application is by Forbidden Festival Limited. The premises location is proposed to have the main arena and stages in Frog Hollow and the camping in Nipton Pastures. You can see this information on the overall site plan that has been provided in the additional information. The premises licence application is as Appendix A111, and it is for indoor and outdoor performance of plays, exhibition of films, performance of live music, and a performance of dance. And all these are between the hours of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 12 till 2300. Also, the performance of recorded music and the sale of alcohol, which is for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday between 12 and 0300. It is intended for all licensable activities to cease within the festival site area at 11 p.m, whilst licensed activities, music and alcohol at the campsite area will proceed to until 3 a.m. in the form of a silent disco. The festival site and campsite can be seen on the premises plan submitted with the application. Late night refreshment. For Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it is between the hours of 12 and 0500. It is intended that all licensable activities will cease within the festival site area at 11 p.m, while late night refreshment will be required to continue until 5 a.m. on the campsite area. The festival site and campsite can be seen again on the premises plan submitted with this application. The site opening hours are requested from 10 a.m. on the Friday to Monday at 12 at midday. During the 28-day consultation period, 5 representations were received. 2 were from Environmental Health, who are one of the responsible authorities who must be consulted for every new application. The responsible authorities include the police, fire service, trading standards, development control / planning, environmental health, and the Home Office alcohol licensing team. Responsible authorities are not required to make comments on applications. They have the option to make a representation if they wish to do so. I'm aware that the applicant has had pre-application meetings with Leicestershire Police and has arranged a Safety Advisory Group meeting, a SAG, for next Tuesday. The environmental health representations related to 2 of the licensing objectives. The first was public safety, relating to the engaging with the Safety Advisory Group and submitting a completed final event safety management plan within a defined timescale, and that's set out in Appendix C1. The second was the prevention of public nuisance, namely the noise management plans as listed at Appendix C4. Both have put forward recommendations within their representation for the committee to consider, which have been agreed with the applicant. The other representations came from 3 members of the public, which relate in some parts to the 4 licensing objectives. These are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. A list of all the representations and the outline of objections has been published within the report and agenda pack. Since the original publication of the agenda pack, all attending parties were notified that representation Appendix C3 from Mr. T. Parry on behalf of Barkston, Plunget and Redmile Parish Council has been withdrawn after discussing his concerns with the applicant re the traffic management plan, and that this was an event licence for 4 days in 2022 only. Representations Appendix C3 from Mr. S. Exwood was also withdrawn after discussing his concerns with the applicant re the traffic management plan. There remains one representation from Mr. N. Pomper, Appendix C, who has submitted his representation in writing, but has not asked to speak at this hearing. His concerns are regarding the licensing objectives of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance. Yesterday, on the 1st of March 2022, we received as part of the Safety Advisory Group a link to 16 site-specific documents from the applicant. After conferring with the legal representative, 4 of the documents have been put forward before you today. That is, number 1, the draft noise management plan, the draft traffic management plan, the draft event safety management plan, and an overall site plan. I would ask that members consider carefully all the information which is available to them in both the original agenda pack as well as the additional information before making an informed decision on this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greensmith. Has anybody got any questions for Mr. Greensmith? Councillor Holmes?
Not at this moment, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Douglas?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Thank you, Simon, for your report there. Are you able to comment on your on the department's own opinions of issues such as the opening times, for example, regarding the sale of alcohol, refreshments and recorded music? Is that appropriate at this point?
Yes, in relation to this, the main part of the site is open until 11 p.m. at night, which I would think would give the majority of the disruption, if there was going to be any, from noise. The public will then go back to the campsite area, and obviously that has been mitigated by the use of silent disco, although there will be some background noise that is involved there. But this appears to be a sensible plan, and I have no objections. The licensing authority have not put any objections in relation to this.
If I could just, is it all right just to come back a little? Yeah, that's I'm pleased to hear that. I'm pleased to hear that you're happy with that situation, because I was just a bit concerned that the sale of alcohol was going on until 3 o'clock in the morning and the recorded music until that time also. But if you are happy with the noise levels, and obviously there's a lot in the noise section of the levels, I'm not a sound expert, but if you're happy, then I shall just leave that at that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Douglas and Simon. I'm pleased to say that the papers we've got relating to this are very thorough. We've appreciated the depth that people have gone into. So thank you for all the work that you have done on this to present it to us. I will now invite the applicant or their representative to present their application, please.
Thank you very much. Morning. My name is Felicity. I'm the legal representative. Simon's here representing the applicant. Mr. Greensmith, you've done a lot of my work for me, I think, by presenting the application in such a thorough way. So maybe if I'll just sort of focus on the outstanding issues, because as you know, a lot of work has been done during, well, both pre and post application to try and narrow them, and we have done considerably, but as you've heard, there is one outstanding representation which we've not been able to deal with, which is why we're before you today. So as you know, this is an application for a time-limited premises licence in the grounds of Belvoir Castle. Belvoir Castle has its own premises licence, or a number of them, I understand, but they're not quite right in their current form for the proposed use, either by the particular location or the hours or the capacity, which is why we've applied for a standalone premises licence. Simon undertook a lot of pre-application consultation with the police, and that very much guided our thinking in applying for a time-limited licence. So it is only for one event this year. And it is Simon's intention to apply for further licences for subsequent years, but as has been highlighted by Red Mile Council, Parish Council, by applying for just a time-limited one, it allows for an assessment after the event, if you were minded to grant the licence, as to how things have passed off. And so Simon has an extra incentive to make sure that the licensing objectives are upheld. Obviously, he wants to put on a good event this year, but obviously with the knowledge that he wants to do it again. And so any slip-ups this year are going to negatively impact the prospect of getting future licenses. So I think it serves a couple of purposes, and that's why we've done it. This event is planned for early July. You've heard the types of licensable activities that we're seeking, where and when. We've received no objections from the police. That's not to say that they're not actively involved. They are. You've heard from Simon that there's the first SAG meeting next Tuesday. That's not us being presumptuous at all. I want to make that clear, just because of timescales and when this hearing fell and when the proposed event is due to take place, we've had to make a start on that. If you're not minded to grant it, that will all cease, but we hope that you do, so that can continue. So the police haven't objected. Environmental Health have. Joanne Belcher objected and wanted to see the operating schedule we submitted with the application form part of the licence, which was its purpose. So more than happy for that to happen, and requested a requirement for engagement with the SAG to commence at least 6 months before the event, hence the early engagement that's already underway. David Marchenko suggested an additional 11 conditions be added to the operating schedule, which we've agreed to, which has satisfied his concerns. They're found at page 68 of the papers in front of you. Red Mile Parish Council, as Simon has mentioned, Simon met with them a couple of weeks ago. They in turn then met and have communicated to the authority that they too are happy. They were keen to see that this was just a one-off event to allow for that review with a little r after the event. And yeah, that was the reason we applied in that way. So they're happy, as is Mr. Steve Exwood. Mr. Exwood is part of the parish council. You'll have seen that his representation was written in very similar terms. So having satisfied the parish council's concerns, we too satisfied Mr. Exwood's. So that leaves Mr. Pomper. I know that the licensing authority have reached out to try and contact him. Simon has emailed him separately, as have I, but no one has received any response back whatsoever. We would hope that had we been able to speak to him, we might too have been able to have explained the application in more detail, and he might have been able to withdraw his representation like the others, but he hasn't, and we are where we are. I believe that his representation may be a little confused with the application for another festival, which you determined a few weeks ago. He makes reference in there to 4 nights of amplified music until 5 a.m. That's not what we've applied for, so I wonder if there's a bit of confusion there. The sale of alcohol will continue within the campsite, but as has been explained to you, the entertainment will cease at 11 p.m. on the festival site. He raises concerns about what festival goers might do during the daytime, but it's a camping festival. Simon will be putting on reason to stay throughout. So it's envisaged that once festival goers are there, they will stay there for the duration. There shouldn't be any migration from the site into neighbouring villages. There'll be no need to go there because everything will be provided for them. He raises concerns regarding traffic, but part of the SAG, part of the documentation that you've seen includes a traffic management plan. That's obviously a moving document, pardon the pun, but that will be further enhanced as those discussions take place. So we believe that we've satisfied the concerns in that respect. He also raises the issue of antisocial behaviour. Simon's very alive to that, but of course we have the police without an objection here, but engaged with the SAG. So that too will be managed in the processes in the coming weeks and months if you're minded to grant the licence. And I would say that notwithstanding the fact that Mr. Pomper hasn't engaged so far, that doesn't mean that Simon will just stop trying to speak to him. We have his email address. He can continue to try and engage. If he were to suddenly appear next week, Simon will meet with him, speak with him, do whatever's needed to allay any concerns that he has. So on that basis, we'd ask you to grant the application today. We believe that the operating schedule attached is robust. It's been further enhanced by input from the responsible authorities. And this is it's the first step. It's obviously a vital step in putting on the event. It's the hook from which everything else hangs, because without this licence, SAGs can't continue. So we'd ask you to grant it today to enable the process to sort of run its course ahead of the event in July. Thank you. So unless you have questions for either myself or Simon, that's the application.
Thank you very much for that. Very thorough. I'm sure you understand that some residents will have concerns about crime and disorder. You know, they're not used to that amount of people descending into the area that they live. I think your post-assessment that you're going to have with the parish councils is excellent, and it is very important. And I hope you've learnt, like I have done since becoming a councillor, that actually speaking to people and explaining to them what it is you're proposing to do gets you a lot further than just presenting a paper or an application to hold an event. And I'd like to thank you for taking the time to do that. Has anybody else got any questions, Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, living in the area, one thing that when the CLA have had at Belvoir Castle, the game fair, it has been done in such a professional way. I just wish that any event that does take place, they ought to be talking to them. I know it's some time ago now, but it was done so professionally, helped all the villages, helped everybody. The police were up front. Don't know why they haven't been here today, but anyway, they haven't. My concern as a retired farmer, I look at all this and I know where it happens. I know the area, but my concern is the fire risk, because I'm not saying that I don't go along with everything, because I think it's very good that you've told us all this, but I don't know where, and I can't think where all standing crops will be. Corn crops. I don't know whether if you could find that out, because as we've been saying previously, and it was on the news this morning, 20% of our grain comes from Russia, only 20%. The rest we have ourselves. But you imagine a spark in July going across standing crops across the Vale of Belvoir, it could go anywhere. And so I just want you to be very aware of that. And also have a word with the CLA, because they did such a fantastic job, and it would help, I think, anything that happened at Belvoir. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Holmes. Councillor Douglas.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yes, you mentioned that it's a one-off application, but I do notice on page 14, which includes your application itself, that it's open-ended, as in you've got the premises licence to start on the 19th of January 2022, but you haven't put a date in the next box, which is 2. So I assume it's an ongoing application rather than a one-off. Is that?
No, it's definitely a one-off event. The reason that second box wasn't filled in was because whilst it is hoped and planned that the event will take place on that date in July, it might be the week after, it might be the week after that. And I didn't want to just tie it in specifically there, but in the box underneath, it mentions that it will just be for one event, and it is planned, and it is full steam ahead for that first weekend. But just in case something happens, when we lodged the application, it was in the lead up to Christmas. The COVID picture at that point was very different to the one we find ourselves in now.
Yes, thank you. And another question, if I may. Thank you, Chair. Yes, you mentioned there was a discrepancy in the application as regards times endings, because looking at your application, you've got, and I'm just getting to the page, the recorded music finishing at 3 o'clock. Is that so? Yes.
Yeah, only in relation to the silent disco on the campsite.
When you say silent disco, sorry, what does that mean? Thank you.
Simon's better placed to describe it, but I think it involves headphones.
Yeah. Basically, it's people get a set of headphones, and they're over-ear headphones, which are wirelessly linked into a DJ, and then they listen to the music directly into their headphones, as opposed to having any amplified music.
Thank you. That is a very good idea, and something I do at home late at night on the computer. Put my headphones on so the neighbours are spared. Excellent. Yes, and I'm just checking. And well, obviously you've got the late night refreshments to 5 o'clock the next day, and alcohol finishes at midnight. Yeah, so that seems all right. Yeah, and if I could just focus as my last point on Mr. Pomper's representation on page 53, being easily can't be here. He's listed 4 concerns. 1 is noise, 2 is traffic, 3 facilities, and 4 antisocial behaviour. The noise, I'm quite happy because Simon Greensmith, as the technical officer for Melton Borough Council, has explained that the site licensing are happy with that, and the noise explanations that a specialist are in the packs, and I've read that. The traffic is management plan is actually quite impressive. I looked at the plan. You've got the red route, the green route coming in from a wide area. It's not concentrated, as I've seen in former applications, in a out of the sticks way where you've got back roads almost leading in. So this red and green route coming in from a wide area using the main roads is very appropriate, 2-way roads that are tarmacked. And then, you know, you've got traffic light systems, you've got cone management, you've got the painting out of the parking area. I'm not worried about the traffic. In fact, 10 out of 10 for that, and I was really pleased. But the facilities, I thought this was a good question to ask you. What are the festival goers going to do in the daytime? Asked Mr. Pomper. Can you just, in your own words, in a nutshell, just explain what you see them doing? They're up late the night before. I think a lot of them are going to be sleeping in actually the next morning. I know I would be. But could you just explain what you foresee them doing that next morning? Thank you. And day.
In the following morning.
Daytime until the facilities and the
Right,
kind
okay.
of entertainment comes back on.
The event opens at around about midday, actually, from the campsite. So the campsite operates pretty much like 24 hours. So the event will open from midday. There's going to be a food area and an entertainment area within the campsite, as well as shower facilities and toilet facilities actually on the campsite. So the campsite will have its own encompassed entertainment area and food area and seated area. So if people get up early and want to do stuff, there's going to be things happening within the campsite prior to the event opening. Once the event opens, the music and the programming starts from when the site actually opens, and then within the site there's food and seating areas and drinking areas within that as well. Then if people want to go back to the campsite, they can go back to the campsite and go back to their tents during the day, and there's a free flow for the people that have weekend campsite camping tickets. Then they've got the ability to free flow between the event into the campsites area.
Yes, thank you for that. I do notice that the plays start at 12 midday, and the live music obviously from that time as well, and the performance of dance as well at 12 midday. So you are just talking about the morning and the washing and the waking and the feeding and the eating and yeah. And just one more question that Mr. Pomper may have asked if he was here. I'm assuming the antisocial behaviour at number 4. What controls are in place to ensure that there is an antisocial behaviour? There's no antisocial behaviour impacting either the local residents and or the environment in this area of considerable landscape value. And I am pleased to see, for example, that the pathway to the village of Nipton has been blocked. Is blocked off. I was actually really pleased to see that in the application, but how would you deal with any antisocial behaviour that occurs during the time? What would be done? Thank you.
Well, we've had numerous conversations with the police and with the security company about how we deal with that. The idea, if we do get any incidents of antisocial behaviour, that we actually maintain people into a holding area which is actually on the site, and then from that point they're then escorted to a local coach station, train station, or agreed drop-off position. If rather than actually from our welfare position, we can't just turf people out of the event site. This is part of the conversations we've had with the police, that we've got a duty of care to get people to a particular place to be able to get home or make a collection.
Well, that was my last question, but that's really reassuring, because to know that they're escorted to a position where they can just go home or get away from out the area if they are causing issues, to save pushing them into villages and into fields and the countryside where further problems can develop. Thank you. Yes, well, they're my questions, because I think if Mr. and Mrs. Pomper were here, they may be asking those questions. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Holmes, you wanted to come back.
Thank you. Yes, we've talked about this before our pre-meeting. You're quite happy about the sewage because there are plenty, presumably, of conveniences, etc., etc. And what would happen, because obviously you can get down to the lake here, which is a beautiful area. Have you got anything preventing people from throwing cans and things into the lake? Have you got a guard area? I've got another question as well, actually. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. The area of the lake is actually going to be heritage fenced off, and is going to be quite a long way outside of the event site. But obviously the car parking area is, people will walk down the road with the lake on the right hand side, but that will be actually heritage fenced, and then there'll be security in various points along that route to ensure that people are migrating to the entrance to the event and not just dissipating across the whole site.
Lastly, I noticed, I picked up that you've got a shuttle bus coming and going. Is this constant? Because some people want to go earlier and later, and it is then that you might have a problem with people sort of hanging about, basically, if they wanted to come or go or whatever. Will there be quite a lot of such shuttle buses, and where from?
I think at the moment the main shuttle bus is from the train station here. I think that's what the basic plan is at the moment, which will actually be bringing people from the train station up to the site and then back, and that will run constantly throughout the day. But I anticipate that the majority of people are probably going to arrive by sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then people will probably, you start to get egress from about 8 in the evening.
What's that Brandon station?
Yeah, I think that's within the plan as well. So there's potentially going to be 2 and 3, and I'm sorry, I don't actually know those details yet at the moment. We're just working through the coach and the shuttle bus runs with the traffic management company, and because we're also waiting for ticket sales to try and identify where people are likely to arrive to.
Thank you. And please, Councillor Holmes, ask those questions about water, because Councillor Pritchett, there were the main things that he's concerned about, that sewage going into the lake would destroy wildlife. There'll probably be red kites, he tells me, in the trees there, but whether they stay to listen to the music or fly away is obviously their decision. And he was pleased to see that you were working with Anglian Water. You'd had conversation with them about the water supply, because water supply in the Vale can be difficult and is difficult for some of the villages. So that was Councillor Pritchett's problems or issues that he wanted to raise here today. So I'm pleased we've done that. Right, there are no more questions. Right. Does the legal advisor have any questions? No. We don't have any interested party submissions. I will now invite the closing speech from the applicant, please.
I don't think I need to say anything, Chair. It's all fresh in your mind. So we'd just like you to grant the application as I've outlined already. Thank you.
Right, well, thank you very much. I will now adjourn the hearing and the subcommittee will retire along with the legal advisor. Thank you. And please remember to turn your microphones off because we're still recording. Thank you. Right, thank you for your patience. The subcommittee have reached a decision, and I will now hand over to our legal advisor to present a summary of that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The decision of the members is that the licence should be granted with the addition of the conditions as set out in the operating schedule, the conditions that have been agreed with Mr. Marchenko, and also the condition that the applicant will engage with SAG by no later than the 8th of March 2022, and then continue to engage with SAG in the lead up to the festival. Sorry. Members would like to make a comment that the applicant has given them great assurance that the licensing objectives have been prioritised, and the applicant should be commended for the early engagement with the responsible authorities and also the lay parties in the parish. Obviously, at this point, I have to point out that you are entitled to make an appeal to the Magistrates Court. We will get the decision notice out to you, hopefully by the end of this week, as soon as we can. But apart from that, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.